Well, the work on Hooper continues. Decided we needed to do some brakes on this. Driver's side's grinding pretty bad, but this side, not too bad. Somebody I think did this not too long ago because it really wasn't that bad to get apart. Everything seemed to be cooperating, but we had to change out the rotor for sure. And I bought new calipers. These actually look pretty decent. You know, there's still clean paint on them. The problem is that the seal, as you can see, has blown right out of it. So I figured, well, since it came with a new set of rotors when I bought it, I'd just upgrade the calipers and put in new pads and do it all the way. New wheel bearings, do it all, but got this all apart. And it's really a little more complicated. Modern vehicles, four-wheel drive like my Ram, you just slide the caliper back, pull off the rotor, put the new rotor on, put in your pads, put the caliper back on, and you're pretty good to go. The older ones, you literally have to pull the hub and the bearings and everything apart. And as you can see, you know, I got it all apart. But there's a whole process, and you want to make sure you pay attention to a few things if you haven't done this before. Yeah, I know it looks like a bunch of exploded parts, but you know, once you get this thing back together, starting to get it back together, there's a couple things to pay attention to. You have an inner nut, and this inner nut gets torqued to I think it's at 100 foot-pounds. Then you back it off and put it to 35, and then back it off 3/8 of a turn. But this has a little pin in it. I don't know how well you can see that. And I usually take my center punch and I'll just tap that pin out a little bit to make sure it engages, because the next part to go on is this washer, and you see there's holes in it. And that little tab actually has to line up with the tab that you have in your hub. Okay, I don't know how well you can see it in there, if at all, but there's a little section, get you a little light on here, where you can see there's a recess, and this washer has to literally line up with that recess in there. So what oftentimes happens is you'll get this in here and lined up, and the pin in the inner wheel nut, which you put on first, oftentimes doesn't line up. So instead of lining up with a hole, it'll line up between the holes, and it either pushes the pin out, or it'll go between the holes, it'll push the pin out, or other times it'll just spin around in there, and then you got a problem. So this goes on first. This nut here goes on first. You torque it to your spec, and then you line this up in the slot, and hopefully it lines up with a hole when you put it back together. If not, you can just crank your nut forward or back. I usually back it off just a little bit, just to line up with the hole. That keeps everything aligned, and this pin keeps your inner nut from backing off. So it's real important to have that. And then you have an outer nut, and that outer nut you torque to, I think it's at 150 or 160 foot-pounds. And then that keeps everything together. You put your locking gear and spring back in. That little clip holds that in. Then you have your selector for your locked or unlocked on your hub, and then that snap ring keeps that together. Last thing to go on, this is your selector for free or locked on your hubs, and then you put your screws in to keep that covered. And you got to kind of line this up with this guy so that, you know, when you do your locking and your unlocking, it actually turns it. So there is a little bit of keeping things keyed together. This is a little more difficult also, not just because you're doing the wheel bearings and hubs, and you know, not just a rotor and pads, but you're working this whole thing. The other thing too is that the wheel studs actually go through the rotor, so you have to knock every one of those wheel studs out, and then when you put the other rotor on, the new rotor, you have to press them back in. Normally you can use a hydraulic press. For those of us who don't have one, not here in the shop, not yet anyway. My old father showed me a little trick. You can take a old lug nut and you can thread it down just to leave just a little bit at the tip between the rotor and the lug nut, and then you give it a little tappy tap with your enforcer, and most of the time you can knock them pretty free if you just take your time. Don't hit it too terribly hard, and you can knock them out. For those that are really bad, you know, I'll use some freeze spray, make the metal contract a little bit, and then sometimes that works. If it doesn't, you got two options. You take it somewhere, they press out the old ones, bring your new rotor, they'll press the new ones in, someplace like Napa, your local garage. Anybody that has a small press can make it happen. Or you can just buy a new rotor with a hub assembly and the wheel studs already in it. That's another option. You know, all my stuff is really in good condition, so I decided all I needed was rotor and pads. Bought new calipers just to do it. Wheel bearings look like they'd been replaced at some point, but I bought new ones anyway, put them in. And just, you know, doing a mild service. I'm not going to get to the universals quite yet. They still look pretty good up in there, and I think those were done at some point. They may be a little dirty and cruddy, but they definitely were done at some point. They're not loose or broken. And when we get into the deeper restoration on the truck, all this is going to get replaced. These are 2.5-inch lift springs, so they're going to get taken out. We're going to go back to these stock leaf springs, and we're going to get this lowered to factory ride height. Same with the back. That 2.5-inch lift is coming out. Do the shocks at that point. But when we get to the actual restoring part, the front and rear axles and differentials, all that's going to get replaced. There is a steering stabilizer to help trucks with big tires, and just trucks in general. That stabilizer it's sprung differently than a shock absorber, so don't put a shock absorber in there. They have a different pressure gauge and a different ratio, so always put in the right part. So we'll be doing the stabilizer just to drive it around. I want to drive it around for the summer in this, kind of find out what it needs in this sort of configuration. But the other thing we're doing too is I want to start getting it into the Hooper configuration, where we have not only the correct ride height, tires, wheels, and whatnot, but we also have, you know, the opportunity to find out if there's any other problems that we don't know about before taking the cab and the bed off the frame. You know, we're going to strip this right down to the frame. There won't be a part left on it. Rehab it, powder coat it, put it back together, do the body, and then we'll be in good shape. But I'd like to cruise it around this summer and do a few things and just get a feel for it. Pull out we found a problem in the transmission, unfortunately. I've got to pull the front and rear axles, four-wheel drive axle and the drive axle. I'm sorry, drive shaft, front wheel drive shaft. They both have to come out, drop the transfer case, and get the transmission out. It's definitely got a bearing issue. If I let off the clutch pedal, it sounds fine. I don't hear anything. If I depress the clutch pedal and disengage, it's got a grinding and kind of a rattle. So I'm assuming it's a bearing. It's probably just a throw-out bearing, but I've got it out. I'm going to have it out. We'll just go through the whole transmission at that point to drive it around, and then I'll have a good manual 4-speed. It's a granny gear, low, and then it's got 3 regular speeds. But you all know the end result for this is going to be an LS3 with either a 4L60 or a 6L80. I'm going to be using the adapter kit to go from the transmission to the NP205 transfer case, and then you know, they make a kit for that. I think you might have to bore the transfer case from 80 millimeter to 90 millimeter on some of the kits. I'm not sure, but we'll find that out. And then we'll just keep on motivating, and this little project will come along. But for today, it's just maintenance stuff, brakes, grease, you know, do a little work on the front end. And every video I say, I'm looking for that GMC grill. I'm looking for a good rebuildable GMC grill. Well, guess what, kids? I've been finding junk, you know, where all these are broken out and, you know, it's busted up here. I've been finding junk for $500, and, you know, I just, well, yeah, I could do it. I've got the moxie to do it, but, if I could find a nice, nice good one. So I found two that were unbroken, rebuildables, and they were $700 each. And I said, geez, man, there's something I gotta put time in. Well, it's worth it. And just as I got online to go buy them, and a buddy had sent me an email, and he said, hey, would you pay $700 for a new grill? I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He said, Dr.61 on eBay has one. And I'm like, wait, hold on. So I went over and we talked, and there it is, kids. Hasn't even been out of the wrapper. Brand new 1977 GMC grill. Just right, the exact grill I need for the Hooper truck, and it bolts right in. So I'm not sure I'm going to put it in yet. I think I'm going to wait before, till we do the restoration part and get the paint work and everything done. That'll be one of the last pieces to go in. So I'm just at the beginning of this project, so I got a long way to put that in. I am so anxious to put that in because when I held it up and looked at it on the truck, it was a completely different looking truck. I don't know why, but I just think that's the cat's meow. So thank you to the eBay seller who sold me this grill, worked with me on the price, and I was able to get it. They're expensive because you can buy a Chevy grill for a couple $100 off LMC truck, but nobody has this particular GMC one, and this is the correct one because some of the later ones, this bar comes across, and then these come down solid, and then this bar is broken up. On the one I need for the Hooper truck, this is the correct one. This bar runs all the way across, and then these break into sections, and I am just ecstatic to have this grill because I kept thinking, if I don't find a good grill or I'm not happy with the grill, what's the point of doing a project? We have a goal. I don't know if I want to let the goal out now because I'm not going to be able to make it for this year, but I always set myself a goal, and the goal for this truck is I love going to the Adirondack Nationals. My black and white, it's taken, most likely to get pulled over award. It's got the Sheriff's Pick Award. I won a top 50, got that beautiful jacket. I love going to the Nationals. I love the cruise. I love everything about that show. It's in Lake George, New York. There's plenty to do other than the car show. And that weekend, everybody complains about the traffic and the people. It takes 45 minutes to get a slice of pizza. Well, you got 20,000 people besieging on the town. But that weekend, not this coming year, probably won't make it for this year, but the following year, I want to take Best Truck Award at the Adirondack Nationals. I'm really hoping for a top 50. What I really am gunning for are the following 3 awards. I'm gunning for top truck at the Adirondack Nationals, and with that, it would be on the cover of the Adirondack Nationals booklet. They have a souvenir program, and my black and white's been in it a couple of times. It's so awesome to see that. And then if I could get this truck on the cover as best truck, that would be it for me. That would be the top award. Next, we're going to go for the All Truck Show in Ballston Spa, and I'm hopeful to get a top award there. I don't know that I'd get a best in show there because these are just truck guys, and they really, the work at the Nationals is insane. You ever see some of the stuff that goes there? But when it comes down to just a truck show, these guys are very particular, as particular as anything else. So that might be a tough one to pick up. And then the third one would be the trucks, GM trucks down in Pennsylvania there at Carlisle. So if I can pick up a top truck award at Carlisle. So that's the 3 I'm kind of gunning for with this project. And then after that, it's just going to be drive around and have some fun in the Hooper pickup and just enjoy myself. So that's where we're going. And there's the old Dodge. So my buddy Donnie come over to help me take this apart and put it together today. And I'm just waiting. He took a coffee break, get some lunch. I went and had some lunch and some coffee. So as soon as he gets back, we'll wrap this up, and we'll see what he's my arms and hands right now. I'm still undergoing the therapy from the accident, so I just can't get on things, and I just don't have the strength right now. So hopefully as we keep going through the physical therapy, things will get better and physically, and we'll get this bad boy on the road. Okay, that's the next part of the Hooper pickup. General maintenance on the brakes.